advice to do just that. I am here with Michael Sherlock today. She is from Shock Your Potential. She is the Chief Potential Officer. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nydia. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you have some really terrific advice. I want you to start with tip number one. What is your advice for people amid the pandemic? This is such an unprecedented and difficult time for everyone.
Well, it is. And I think that in so many cases, people are saying, gosh, I'm even tired of the word unprecedented, because it just becomes one more thing to feel overwhelmed by. And so no matter where you are, maybe you are not certain if you're going to have your job back, or maybe you know for certain that it's not going to be there, at least in the near future. The first piece of advice is just to stop and breathe and really try and get your head in a good space, because it's so easy to be overwhelmed with everything going on, that if we can stop just momentarily and say, okay, a deep breath is going to at least let me push something down on my anxiety so that my clear-headedness can come through.
That is great advice. I think all of us need just to take a step back and try to sort of absorb what's happening instead of having these knee-jerk reactions, because that's not going to help anybody, especially as you're trying to do a strategic job search, right?
Absolutely.
I know that you also say don't create worst case scenarios in your head. A lot of this is sort of a mental game that we play with ourselves. Talk more about that.
Well, there's so many times that all of us, I know through all of this, have had those moments where we go, I don't feel like I can control anything. And so when you feel like you don't have any control, it's easy to let your mind continue to create worse and worse case scenarios. And so if you start getting to that point where you're like, I may never get a job again, I'll never work again, maybe I'll never work in the industry that I love, then that increases your anxiety too. And unfortunately, that starts to come through as desperation. So when we get to really start moving, the gears of our economy again, and people can start hiring, there's going to be a difference between that person who has that calm demeanor and is controlling what they can control, and the person that's continuing to feed their own anxiety, because they will create their own worst case scenario just by keeping that anxiety up.
Positive energy really is so powerful and so critical. I want to also, for all of our viewers who are out there watching on Facebook, you can submit your questions to us right here live on Facebook, and we'll try to answer your questions. I'm monitoring my Facebook right now just to make sure that we get to all of your questions. I know, Michael, you've also said that you need to not only be positive yourself, but surround yourself with positive people, right?
It's so true. And we know that social media, can help and hinder. And so because we're having to interact socially, it's really important that you pick and choose what mediums you're on and how you interact, and try to surround yourself, virtually at least, with people that are going to help you keep in that right mental space. And let me give you an example. I spend a good portion of every day interacting with people on LinkedIn. It's the business platform where I have the most energy and the most followers, and I watch what people are doing, and I see people that are, posting things about being let go, for instance. And they're doing it with, for the most part, really respectful, positive terminology, and being thankful. And so that what they're getting back is more thankfulness and more positive energy and more support. And ultimately, making sure that, you are around people that will also say, you can do this, you will get there, you can make it through this, I believe in you, will help you when you don't feel that you can make those last steps.
I'm so glad that you brought up LinkedIn. I mean, we talk about LinkedIn a lot, but I think a lot of people don't know how to use LinkedIn strategically. What is your advice?
Oh, gosh, I could spend hours just on LinkedIn alone. LinkedIn it's an amazing resource for truly business-minded people. So people who want to up their game. So it's not just a place to host your resume. It's not a place just to, that you say, I'm going to go look for a job. And it's funny how many times people say to me, oh, I don't want my employer to think I'm looking for a job, so I don't want to be on LinkedIn. But that is not what LinkedIn is about. It's about bringing really great, talented business people together and finding a platform. And you can truly stand out and start to show yourself as a great potential candidate by what you do on LinkedIn, how you interact, what things you post, and who you're connecting yourself with.
And here's a tip for people. There's actually a feature that you can use on your profile for LinkedIn so that you can kind of hide a little bit of your activity from your bosses. So it's not foolproof, fail-safe, or anything like that, but there is an option that you can turn on so that LinkedIn won't sort of send and show in your boss's feeds exactly what you're doing. Isn't that right, Michael? Do you know exactly what that feature is and how people can turn that on?
I don't know, but if anybody, after this sends me an email, I can connect them with a person who is absolutely a LinkedIn expert. In fact, she's probably somebody you might want to discuss that with too. But definitely, there's so many different things that you can do there. But one of the suggestions I make to people is, let's say you are trying to get a new job in sales, and you are out of work right now. You have an opportunity to be posting things on LinkedIn every day that maybe is a sales tip, or maybe it's a sales strategy, or you're sharing a great sales example, so that if somebody's looking at your profile and they're considering hiring you, they can see that you're already engaged at that level, that you're working on yourself and that you're dynamic and you're trying to share. So there's a lot of different ways to stand out and really use LinkedIn as a tool and a resource to help you move to a position maybe you would never, ever even dreamed of.
Okay, we have a question here from Michael Braun. How can I find a job in telecommunications?
You might be better suited to answer that question.
I do think that's a good question. We were talking yesterday with Kristen Kane Ford about different job boards and different places to look. And I have two pieces of advice for you. Number one is, as Michael was just saying, to get on LinkedIn and look for people who are in the telecommunications industry, who are already working at companies that you're interested in. Try to figure out what your 6 degrees of separation is from that person, and then reach out to those people and see if you can get connected eventually to the person you really want to talk to. You can also reach out to those people cold and just say, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. I respect you. I know that you are a respected person in this field. Can I have a 10-minute curiosity conversation with you so I can learn how you got there and what I need to do and what steps I need to take? I think that, what Kristen Kane Ford said yesterday is that Google has its own job board, and it aggregates Monster, Indeed, all of those things, so you can, apply for and look through jobs there. And I think, again, the most important thing is, letting everyone within your network know what your goal is, because somebody, and you just may not know it yet, somebody may know someone who can help you, who's in that field. So I think the more you can, broadcast to people what it is you are looking to do, the better. Anything you want to add to that, Michael?
Yeah, that's such a great point, especially, it kind of goes back to my point about, keeping yourself surrounded with positive people, is when you are putting things out there to the universe saying, hey, everybody, I want to make a job change and I want to shift into a different industry and this is what I want. I'd love to have your thoughts. I'd love to have any connections you may know. And you'll be surprised sometimes what happens, who gets sent your way, and that may absolutely change the course for you.
What should people be doing right now while they're laid off or furloughed?
I'll tell you what, the number one piece of advice I have is work on yourself. And what I mean by that is work on building your skill set. Because if I were, ready to hire again, and maybe I was only going to be able to rehire 1 out of 3 people, and I'm looking at these people that I've worked with for a long time, and I'm going to ask them, what did you do over the last 10 weeks while we were all at home? The one that says I've been sitting on the couch binge watching Netflix versus the one who says, I was, trying to keep sane. I was homeschooling my kids, which is very important. All those things are very important. The person who says I'm just trying to juggle it all, keep myself sane, and I read a leadership book, or I listened to a sales podcast. It was fantastic. Or I signed up for an online course. All the things, I want to actually know that you were that parent juggling all the kids and all those things at home and still working on yourself, because that would tell me that no matter what you were facing, you were still worried and concerned about enhancing your total skill base.
Terrific. You have such great advice. Anything else that you want to tell our folks? I mean, I know a lot of your advice is cross industry, which is so great because people in every industry right now are really struggling.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we understand that we can control the narrative and we can control the path to an extent. And it's not going to be pretty. We know that. The numbers are not looking great in terms of, how fast we're going to rebound or how many people are going to have jobs readily available. So, control what we can, especially from our mental state, but also be willing and able to pivot. So if you've had a skill set in one industry, it's about breaking that down and say, not just what the, individual tasks were that you completed, but what were the skill sets? Did you have leadership responsibility? Were you responsible for sales? Did you have to were you a person who was responsible for a lot of deadlines? Whatever those common themes are, become common across all industries. And so being flexible to say, hey, I may not be able to go back to that one job, that one industry, but I know the skills, the large overriding skills that I have are applicable in any industry. And those are the things that as you start using the positive narrative, when it comes down to start interviewing and applying, number one, you'll be more likely to look for things and try for things that you might not have thought of. But you're going to be able to have a dialogue when you say, yes, I know I spent the last 12 years in retail sales, but I believe that that is a perfect segue to help you manage your restaurant as you try and open up and deal with all the struggles that you're going to face. And here's the reason why. I have people management skills, time management skills, whatever. And to be able to really put it in verbiage that makes that business owner or manager know that you are there to help them succeed. And the more you can do that, the more successful you'll be.
When you were talking about pivoting, it reminded me of the story that we did yesterday about all of the contact tracers who are now being hired. And the firm that we talked to who is recruiting and hiring a lot of these people said that, the people who make for good contact tracers are people obviously in healthcare, college graduates, but people also in the restaurant industry, servers and hosts and people in customer service. And so there are definitely sort of new opportunities out there. We interviewed Home Depot today. They have hundreds of job openings right here in our area. And they said that, they train, they hire, and there's a real opportunity at Home Depot to move up. And so most of their managers started out as hourly sales associates. And so I do think that there is some good news out there. Just one last question before we go, Michael. If people are looking for these opportunities, what are your recommendations? Where should they go to see what's open?
Well, first of all, just one last point on yours is that's absolutely spot on. Your point was absolutely spot on, that those people who are willing and able to pivot and don't see it as a step down or backwards, but maybe it might be a lateral or different step and you never know where it can take you. But here's the thing. The critical component, whether or not you're going on Monster or Indeed or on LinkedIn to look for jobs, your resume needs to make sure that it can get through systems, because resumes often are put through computer systems that are looking for keywords. So many talented people may not get opportunities for interviews if their resume is not updated. So my first thought is make sure that you are taking a good look, and if possible, have someone help you make sure that your resume can get through any of those systems. Otherwise, it can get very, very frustrating to apply and feel like you're being overlooked when maybe you're just missing the real key that would get you into the door.
Thank you so much. Michael Sherlock with Shock Your Potential. We really appreciate your time today. We thank all of you for joining us for our Building It Better Together series. And we hope that all of you just are able to take Michael's advice and, first of all, take a step back, take a deep breath, and know that, we will all get through this. So thank you so much once again. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Michael, thanks again. Bye-bye, everybody.